Manchester City is still alive here.
The beauty of the game can never be understated. The passion, the emotion, the glory of winning a game, becoming a champion, and lifting the trophy. These are all moments which every athlete dreams of.
Final second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions.
But it's not an easy road to achieve any of this. In fact, for some athletes, sport, their medium to achieve self-actualization, can be the source of their undoing.
Inside for Zingis! But he goes down hard, and he's hurt.
This is most evident when it comes to sport injuries. Growing up, I have always been injury-prone. My injuries were never that serious to start with, but as I grew older and began to play my sports more competitively, the injuries became more and more devastating. My body reached its tipping point a few weeks prior to my 18th birthday. In a rugby match, I tore my ACL and meniscus. I had to immediately stop playing all of my favorite sports: rugby, soccer, and track and field. What followed was 3 years of physical and mental devastation. After my surgery, it took 4 months before I could run again, and another 8 months before I could play sport recreationally. I never really managed to get back onto the rugby field or onto the track, but I at least intended on trying to play soccer recreationally at university. But my first match for my intramural soccer team at university, I tore my left ACL, and I was back to square one. The most difficult part about all of this was not the physical scars, but it was the mental ones. You see, sport was my form of meditation. It gave me discipline in my life. It was my coping mechanism for everything that life threw at me. And in an instant, it was all taken away from me. I suffered from depression, anxiety, my grades plummeted, and I very nearly dropped out of university. But thanks to the support of my family and my amazing and wonderful friends, I managed to get through this. I never really fully understood what had happened to me. And the only way for me to close this chapter of my life is to investigate it. So I sat down with some student athletes who had been through equally devastating sports injuries and a sports psychologist to gain a better understanding of what it means to go through a sports injury.
My name is Mel Watt. I ran track and field in high school.
I'm very passionate about bodybuilding, powerlifting, calisthenics, and also mixed martial arts and boxing.
Field hockey is my main sport right now.
My favorite sport is basketball.
Gymnastics. Martial arts is my favorite sport, so that's Aikido.
I mean, when all was said and done, my coach told me I had a choice. I chose basketball.
Tell me about your favorite moment playing basketball.
I think my favorite moments are being with my teammates.
Dedicating myself so much to just a single thing.
In our second game against U of T, we beat them, which has never happened in the 75 years that U of T and McGill have been playing in field hockey.
It's gotta be, my team was fortunately very good. We ended up winning it all, so we won a provincial championship.
Tell me about your I guess major injury. What was the big one? You know, when did it happen? How did it happen? Sort of thing.
So I was in 10th grade.
I was competing at state.
So I was in practice, and it was the end of practice, and we were shooting, and if we missed, we had to run suicides, and everyone was missing a ton.
And so I was going around faster than I was used to, and so my timing for the dismount, I released too early, and I had too much momentum, so I missed my feet.
I was thrown forward, but then he pulled back as I was flying forward.
It was the next day in class. I was sitting there and it started just feeling like my leg was tensing up and I didn't really know what was going on.
And, it's like a reflex to put your arms behind you.
And it's nothing like I've ever felt before.
I had been through like painful episodes before, but this was one of the most painful things I've ever experienced.
And then suddenly my knee just gave out.
So my wrist ligament tore.
Like one elbow just like popped out.
Finally, a physiotherapist was like, "Oh yeah, you tore sort of the deepest part of your quad."
And I remember like hearing like the big crack sound.
I got this thing called post-fatigue syndrome from not resting, I guess.
Because what happened is that I tore my muscle in my lumbar spine.
It's a lot more, I think, traumatic than people realize. And if an athlete sustains a really serious injury, they actually, in a lot of cases, go through similar processes to somebody who's grieving.
I lost something really important to me when I injured my knee.
Like they were saying 3 months. It's like inconceivable, and I just started sobbing and
Like definitely affected every part of my life because I just was so like upset by all of it that I started to like not handle anything in my life well.
Usually the first one is denial.
I was kind of in disbelief just because of the way the injury came to be.
My first mental reaction was to brush it off, which I think is really bad.
3 days later, I was like, we have a practice, I have to go to this practice. And they were like, everyone was like, Lauren, shut up, stop. Like I made my mom take me to practice. I was like, you have to, I'm fine.
And the second thing is anger. Like, why me?
I was like so tightly wound, just because like I was taking the elevator at school. Like I had to take the elevator to my classes and I wasn't allowed to practice, and at that time I was still doing 4 sports usually, so like not being allowed to do anything was driving me crazy.
I had a huge fight with my coaches because I was telling them my elbows were hurting, and they were telling me I was lying.
Frustrated more than anything, and just, that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing.
And then we get one, sometimes they'll bargain. Or the physio, the physio says 8 weeks, and they say, well, I can make it in 6, it's not that bad. So they have to sort of come to grips with what they're feeling.
It got to playoffs, and I told my coach, I'm playing, I don't care. If you need me, you can put me in.
I thought that it was just gonna be a quick fix and then I could get back at it again.
I spent like the whole 8 games that we played in provincials like arriving to the games early, getting the on-site PT to tape me up, playing the game, and then immediately after I got my foot out of the skate, like sticking it in buckets of snow till our next game.
In some cases, it goes to to the point of depression, where an athlete can be really, really sad, really upset.
Because with my injury also came depression.
You're used to seeing yourself very fit, and then you can't do what you want. You have to take breaks. You can't train with the same level of intensity.
Like last year when I would get sent to the sidelines at practice, I think I cried every time without fail.
I went to my counselor in high school, my high school counselor. I couldn't stop crying.
And they are suffering mentally.
So she sent me to the hospital for a night, and I stayed there, and there I was able to see a psychiatrist and talk to someone about what I was going through.
And for a person like me, it just sets my soul on fire. If I can't train with the level of intensity I want to, it just makes me feel bad about myself.
I think that the year after my surgery was actually one of the worst years of my life, because I wasn't able to do what I loved the most.
Yeah. They are just emotionally unable to control their emotions.
When it gets really bad, I definitely like start to feel like everything's going really bad because I like hinge a lot on my ability to play sports.
It can be pretty traumatic.
It was really shocking to hear from the dietitian when she said that I had anorexia.
Yeah, so the injury was kind of like the beginning of the end for me, where I was fighting for it before that, but kind of realized that I couldn't like overcome my mental challenges.
Fear of re-injury is a huge thing. I mean, it's real. Athletes, they all go through it.
I still wasn't very confident because I always felt like I would tear it again.
And so like on floor where I'd always been confident, I started getting afraid to do any tumbling where I landed facing backwards. I think because I had the same feeling of momentum.
It's like even bicep curling or anything, even just throwing a jab at a heavy bag, you're always kind of thinking about what if I tweak it.
In grade 12, during the playoffs, I tore my ACL again. I was always anxious that I was going to tear it again because I never trusted it for some reason. Even though I did all my exercises, I went to the gym like every single day and did rehab, there was just something not right.
People just ask an athlete, how are you feeling? How's your knee doing? How's the recovery? And it's all about the physical instead of saying, hey, how are you feeling? How are you doing?
After conducting all of these interviews, I felt validated. For the first time in a very long time, I no longer felt alone. Each and every single one of these amazing individuals made me finally feel understood. And it's that feeling of understanding that is allowing me to close this chapter of my life. And I hope it does the same for anyone watching this who's been through similar hardships, sport-related or not. Your injuries don't define you.
If you could give your younger self a piece of advice now that you've gone through all of this, what would you tell her?
Definitely to just rest and think about your future health.
A mixture of stop and actually go to physio. Because really that was what I needed to do for my ankle especially, was to stop.
Yeah, I guess that just to talk to people and to trust people.
Tell people what you need. I was, a little silent about it. That's why my teammates maybe didn't know.
Less is more. Putting too many goals on your plate will destroy your body.
And that the struggles you go through now, the scars that you have, they're going to teach you something. This didn't happen for nothing. This happened to make you stronger, to teach you, to build your character, and to learn from it.